when a hungry boy was chased away. No one spoke up except one man who changed everything with a single meal. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the only thing separating us from kindness is who dares to go first. Milan. Late afternoon, sunlight melted slowly down the marble columns of Piazza del Duomo. The city radiated elegance. Cashmere coats, designer handbags, polished shoes tapping against white stone. The rhythm of people with places to be and money to spend. Keanu Reeves strolled slowly, no bodyguards, no noise. He wore a gray coat, a black beanie, hands in his pockets, a man trying to be unnoticed, and truly no one did, until he stopped, near the cathedral beside a row of public trash bins. A boy, 9, maybe 10, was digging into one. Torn clothes, a worn-out backpack, and shoes that barely clung to his feet. His arms were deep in the bin, searching carefully, quietly. A security guard nearby noticed. Out, go, beg somewhere else. The man barked, already walking over. The boy flinched, started to back away, but Keanu stepped forward and gently placed a hand on the guard's shoulder. "Excuse me," he said, calmly but firmly. "He's not doing anything wrong." The guard turned, stunned for half a second. His face changed. That face, familiar. Too familiar, aren't you? Keanu didn't confirm, didn't deny. He simply crouched next to the boy and asked softly, "Are you hungry?" The boy nodded. Didn't speak. Eyes sunken, lips cracked, but no tears. "Where's your mom?" "In the tent with my sister." "By the parking lot." Keanu nodded. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a wrapped loaf of bread. Something he'd just bought minutes ago, held it out. "Eat. Then take me to meet your mom." The boy looked up at him, hesitant, then accepted the bread. He ate slowly, like each bite might disappear too soon. The guard didn't say another word. Not even when Keanu stood up and followed the child. The city kept buzzing behind them, but in that forgotten alley near the heart of high-end Milan, a quiet meeting began. No cameras, no headlines, just kindness where no one expected it. The boy finished the bread. Not in a rush, but he didn't leave a single crumb. Keanu walked quietly beside him, saying little, just letting the boy lead. They passed 3 blocks, then turned into an abandoned parking lot behind an old shopping center. At the far end, partially hidden behind crates and worn tarps, was a makeshift shelter just large enough for 3 people to curl up inside. A little girl, maybe 5, was asleep with her head resting on a thin woman's shoulder. The woman, slim, tired, her long hair blown gently by the wind, looked up as they approached. Her first glance was defensive, then ashamed. "I'm sorry. We don't ask for money." "You don't have to," she began quickly, pulling her shirt over her shoulder. Keanu sat down, keeping a respectful distance. His voice was calm, warm. "I'm not here to give. I'm here to invite." She froze. He turned to the boy. "Ever been to a restaurant?" The boy shook his head. "What about your little sister?" Keanu nodded toward the sleeping child. "She'd probably love pasta or ice cream." The woman didn't answer, not because she didn't want to, but because no one had ever asked what her child might like. Keanu smiled. He didn't wait for permission. "Tomorrow, 6 p.m. I'll come pick up all 3 of you." "Which restaurant?" the woman asked softly. Keanu looked up, pointed toward a gleaming glass building in the distance, its top floors glittering in the late afternoon sky. The one at the very top of the city, where people usually look down on the world. But this time, I want you 3 to look up from your seat. The woman's eyes welled, not from emotion, but from the shock of being spoken to, as if she mattered. The boy took Keanu's hand, gripping it tight. Really? Keanu nodded. I never promise anything I don't intend to keep. 6:00 p.m. The sky faded into amber as streetlights flickered on along Milan's central boulevard. A modest rental car, not a limo, not chauffeured, pulled up near the edge of an empty parking lot. Keanu stepped out, wearing a deep blue shirt, a soft wool coat, slacks, and plain leather shoes. The mother and her 2 children were already waiting. She wore a dark dress he had sent earlier, simple, clean, and modest. The little girl had a white ribbon in her hair and worn plastic shoes. The boy straightened his collar. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes, they were glowing. Together they stepped into the lobby of Milan's tallest building. At the rooftop, the city's most exclusive restaurant, dinners for hundreds of euros, live piano, candlelight flickering in fine wine glasses, tuxedos, gowns, elegance scripted into every movement. But they never made it to the elevator. A staff member stepped forward before they got close. His gaze scanned them head to toe. I'm sorry, sir. You can't come in. His tone was polite, his eyes were not. We have a reservation, Keanu replied calmly. The staffer looked at him again. Recognition flickered, but not enough to change anything. We have a dress code, he said clearly. And unfortunately, our host team must decline entry to anyone not fitting the ambiance. The mother's hands trembled slightly. The boy's cheeks flushed red. The girl loosened her grip on her mother's hand, not because she wanted to, but because she felt like she was the problem. Keanu stepped forward, voice steady. We're here to eat, not perform. But from behind the desk, a manager emerged. Same expression, same thin smile of social rejection. I'm very sorry, sir. Tonight we won't be able to serve your party. Nothing more needed to be said. The restaurant doors were open, but for the 3 standing outside, they'd been closed long before. The air outside the restaurant had thickened each polite refusal by the staff, adding another invisible pane of glass between them and the rest of the world. Keanu remained still. Not angry, not walking away, just standing silent like he was waiting for something to happen from behind the doors. And then it did. A woman in her 60s stepped into the lobby from within. Silver hair swept into a refined updo, dressed in a deep silk gown, pearls at her wrist, her movements elegant and slow, each step heavy with presence. She was mid-conversation when her eyes locked directly onto Keanu. She paused mid-sentence, her companions followed her gaze, a flicker of recognition, then just the faintest smile. It's him, she said, soft but certain. Without hesitation, she walked toward the entrance. The same host who had turned Keanu away stiffened slightly. Madame Claire, did you just turn away my guest? Her words cut through the air, gentle but impossible to ignore. The manager rushed over, bowing slightly. Madame. I didn't realize who. You don't need to know who they are. She interrupted him smoothly. You only need to know he is standing with Keanu Reeves. She didn't say it like a celebrity introduction. She said it like a truth that should have never been missed. Then she turned to Keanu, her gaze warm, unwavering. If this restaurant isn't gracious enough to serve the people you bring, I'd be honored to host all of you at my home this weekend. Just a small gathering, but it will be warm. The boy looked up at Keanu. The mother squeezed her daughter's hand. Keanu nodded. We'd be honored. Weekend 6:00 p.m. sharp. A cream-colored vintage car pulled up in front of a grand estate nestled in Milan's outskirts, the kind of home that made even wealthy neighbors pause and admire. The iron gates opened smoothly, trimmed grass, warm golden path lights lining the driveway. A chauffeur stepped out, gently opening the car door and bowing to the family. He helped the little girl down as if it were routine. Keanu was already there, waiting beneath the shade of old olive trees. He looked at the mother, gave a small nod that said, "I told you." The boy wore a crisp white shirt and gray trousers, worn but freshly pressed. The mother, in a soft, long dress, still looked hesitant. The girl wore a floral dress and brand new plastic shoes, a gift Claire had sent earlier. The front door of the estate opened. Madame Claire stepped out. No pomp, no performance. "Come in," she said, then crouched slightly to meet the girl's eye level. "Do you like spaghetti?" The girl nodded, eyes wide, shining. Inside the home felt like a symphony in warm tones. A long table draped in white cloth. Flickering candles in soft glass, the faint scent of herbs and something delicious rising from the kitchen. But no one reached for phones, no one whispered. Who are they? Only quiet welcome. Like they were the reason this table was set. A waiter poured water. A young server offered bread, then leaned toward the boy and whispered, "I grew up like you." Dinner began. No one ordered, but every dish arrived just right. Madame Claire raised her glass. No grand toast, just one sentence. "I was turned away from a place like that. Once I swore if I ever had a door to open, I'd open it wide." No one responded aloud, but everyone at the table understood tonight a door had truly opened, outside and within. All eyes turned to Keanu, not because anyone asked him to speak, but because everyone silently wanted him to. He looked up from his plate. Didn't meet anyone's gaze, as if he was speaking more to himself than to the room. "People don't hate the poor," he said softly. "They're just afraid of seeing themselves in them." One line, simple, unforced. But it hit like a crack across a wall everyone had leaned on for far too long. No one spoke. A middle-aged man set down his glass. An older woman lowered her gaze. Even a server, mid-pour, paused mid-air. "We dine in these elegant places," Keanu continued. "Not because the food is better, but because here, no one reminds us that someone out there hasn't eaten at all." The boy looked up at him. He didn't understand every word, but in his eyes there was something deeper. Trust, the kind that says, "This man didn't just promise me dinner. He's standing beside me against a world I thought I'd never belonged to." Madame Claire didn't respond. She simply placed her hand gently on the little girl's shoulder beside her, as if holding on to something fragile and real. No more glasses clinked. No one praised the next dish. There was only silence, not from emptiness, but because everyone was wondering which side of the door they had stood on all this time. A phone screen lights up. A video just under 3 minutes has been uploaded to a small social media channel titled, "I Used to Live on the Sidewalk." The frame is simple. A young man in a gray t-shirt, messy hair, sitting in front of a webcam in a dim apartment. No studio lights, no editing, just a voice that sounds real. "When I was a kid, I used to dig through trash for food. One day a security guard pulled me away from a bin. I thought that was it. But then someone stepped in." He pauses, smiles. Not the smile of pride, but the kind that only comes from remembering something that once saved you. "He didn't give me money. He didn't ask what I did wrong. He just handed me a piece of bread and asked if I wanted to go to dinner with my mom and sister." The name isn't said, but many viewers already know. "We went to a restaurant. They turned us away. I thought the dream ended there. But then a woman, one of the wealthiest people in the city, I'd learn later, stepped out and said, "They're with me." His voice isn't dramatic, he doesn't embellish, he just recalls a memory that never really left his chest. I don't remember every dish from that night, but I remember someone looked at me, not with pity, but with recognition. The video ends with a single line on the screen. I'm not telling this because I was helped. I'm telling it because I know millions are still waiting for someone to stand beside them at the right time. 48 hours after it was posted, the video had reached nearly 6 million views. No marketing, no trending hashtags, no clickbait title. Just a story, real enough that no one could scroll past it too quickly. On Twitter, thousands shared it with the same caption, "We need more Keanus." But first, we need more people brave enough to tell the story. A freelance journalist in Paris tweeted, "I've written hundreds of articles about charity and humanitarian campaigns. But these 3 minutes, they made me realize we've been writing too much and listening too little." A famous TikToker reposted the clip, offering no reaction, no background music, no commentary. Just silence. Even that video reached over 2 million views. On Reddit, one user commented, "I once kicked a kid out of a supermarket, and now I wish someone like him had been standing behind that child." No debates, no sides, just hundreds of thousands of shares. Each person adding a sentence, but all echoing the same truth. This time we saw something good, and no one wanted to scroll away from it. The top comment under the original video read only 3 words. "Now I understand." Major international outlets began covering the video, not in the entertainment section, but under Human in Society. Headlines didn't mention the man's name. They simply read, "The man who once took a homeless family to the city's finest restaurant." Talk shows reached out to the young man behind the video. He declined every invitation, but replied with one sentence, "This story doesn't need me. It just needs people to realize that kindness is something we all carry if we're brave enough to use it." Media outlets began mentioning Keanu Reeves. People tagged him, speculating, but there was no response. No statement, no post, no denial, no confirmation. He didn't share the video, didn't comment. And somehow, that silence made people believe the story even more. A journalist who had once interviewed Keanu during a film premiere wrote, "I once asked him why he never corrected rumors. He smiled and said, 'If I know who I am, I don't need to prove it to anyone else.'" Millions began resharing the video, but now with a new hashtag, not trending, not flashy, but quietly becoming the most reposted tag of the week. Keanu didn't say it because he already did it, and that's how he was remembered. Not for speaking, but for having done something so real that the world couldn't stop listening even when he said nothing at all. Late at night, in a small apartment lit by a warm desk lamp, he opened his inbox, over 300 unread messages, from places he'd never been. Toronto, Manila, Santiago, Cape Town. Not asking, was it really Keanu, but saying, "I've been there too, and your story made me want to live differently." One message came from a girl in Egypt. "I was once kicked out of a bookstore because my clothes were too torn. Now I work as a librarian, and I printed your words, taped them behind the checkout counter." He read every line, couldn't reply to all, but to a few. He wrote 3 words, "I'm still here." Not long after, a small organization in Berlin invited him to speak to a room of media students. Not about Keanu, but about something else. What happens when you tell the truth and you're not afraid of the silence that follows? At first he hesitated. He was still the guy who used to go quiet in class, hoping teachers wouldn't call on him. But he said yes. On a small stage, hands trembling slightly around the mic, he said, "I used to think I was a side character in someone else's story. But I've realized even storytellers can change people." There wasn't roaring applause, no standing ovation, just still eyes, really listening. Eyes that seemed to say, "Maybe I should tell my story too." And that's when he understood. The story he told had ended, but his had only just begun. A teacher in South Korea printed out the full post and gave it to her students. No essay questions, no notes. Just one instruction: read it. If it makes you feel something, keep it. A group of college students in Brazil turned it into a short play. No one played. Keanu, just a single empty chair on stage and a closing line. "I just took a family to dinner." A single father in Canada told the story to his 7-year-old daughter every night before bed about the man who took the little boy to eat. She never remembered his name, but she always said, "Daddy. If I meet someone like that kid, I'll buy them a sandwich." In Vietnam, a 6th-grade boy wrote an essay titled, "If I could be famous, I'd be like Keanu Reeves." His teacher gave him full marks. Not for structure or grammar, but because you wrote what you believe, not what you thought. I wanted to hear. No one coordinated it. No one organized a campaign. No hashtags. No viral trend. But tens of thousands of people, each from a different place, living different lives, started retelling that story in their own way. Not to glorify Keanu, not for views or likes, but to reach back into themselves and touch a kindness they'd almost forgotten was still there. A photo not posted by the people involved. No filters, no tags. Just a moment captured by someone passing by. In the image, a man in a gray coat and black beanie walking along a rain-washed sidewalk. The storm has just cleared. His hands are in his pockets, his shoulders relaxed. Next to him, a young boy around 10 glances up and smiles. No one is looking back. No one waves. No hugs, just two people, one who once saved a meal, one who once kept a promise, parting ways into two different corners of the world. The photo was shared from an anonymous account. Its only caption, "Not everyone who leaves disappears. Some just move on so others can stay." No one could confirm where the photo was taken. No one verified the man's identity. But anyone who had followed the story knew this was the perfect closing frame. No climax, no soundtrack, just someone choosing to do the right thing and quietly walking away, leaving the world a little better for having passed through it. The story ends here, not because there's nothing left to say, but because from this point on, each of us can continue telling it in our own way.